So the only success the personality will ever have in your life, if it has this success, is to recognize itself to be a failure. The only success your personality will ever have in this life, if it recognizes this success, is to recognize that it's a failure. How is it a failure? It's a failure to take yourself to be something that doesn't exist. Your personality doesn't exist when you're not thinking. Thinking generates the personality, doesn't it? Yeah, when the voice in your head is talking, you call that me thinking, right? So there you go. You got the personality right there. You call that me thinking, right? And the process, the thought process, has you believe in the idea that you are somewhere in this body and that you are this psychological personality, that's what you are, even though it has no form, it doesn't exist anywhere. It's a thought process. That's all it is. Yeah? If I ask you who you are, the only possible answer you can give me is to tell me what you think. Isn't that true? Yeah. And the reason that's the only possible answer you can give me is because your existence as a personality is being created by your thinking. Outside of that, it's not there. It doesn't exist. And as long as you take yourself to be something that doesn't exist, something that's not real, you have to suffer. Why? Because how can something that doesn't exist be happy? Have you noticed that all human beings are pursuing happiness? Why? Because they're not happy. Why aren't they happy? Because if you take yourself to be something that doesn't exist, happiness is impossible. How are you going to do that? You know, the Buddhists call human beings in the condition they're in hungry ghosts. In other words, you don't really exist, you're a ghost. And you're never satisfied. That makes you a hungry ghost, right? You're never satisfied. If you think you're satisfied, start paying attention and you'll notice that's not true. You may be satisfied momentarily, but right after that you're hungry again, aren't you? It will never stop, right? So if your pursuit of happiness depends on your being satisfied, you will never be happy. If your pursuit of happiness depends on your experiencing happiness as a personality, you will never be happy. That's not available for you as a personality. And the interesting cosmic joke is that happiness is already occurring where you are. Satisfaction, happiness, peace of mind is occurring where you are, but you're not available. You're busy. You're busy thinking about it, right? Yeah. If you had the opportunity to go to heaven, given the way you operate, you would say, well, I'd like to read a book about it first. That's the way the thinking process works, right? It wants to figure everything out, wants to understand it first, right? Wants to know what's going to happen, then I'll go. You know, then I'll be available for it. I want to be able to predict everything. I don't want any surprises. Life is chaotic. Life is surprising. Life is unpredictable. I don't like that. Well, who doesn't like that, right? Who doesn't like that is the you that thinks you're separate from everything, and therefore you feel threatened by it all, and therefore you resist it, and therefore you struggle with it, and therefore you cope with it, and therefore you think a lot about it, and therefore you have a lot of feelings about it. Yeah, and you stay in that activity all the time, don't you? Yeah, I know a lot about that because failure was my most successful project. You know, it's like David said last night, I can talk a lot about failure. I've had a lot of practice. I can talk a lot about failed relationships. I've done that a lot of times, and I've got lawyers that I've made rich to prove it. All right? So you don't have to go that way. You don't have to take the low road, you know. You can go right, you can go directly to freedom. You can go directly to happiness, satisfaction, peace, and well-being. And the way you do that is to relax and calm down, because you're already there, but you don't know it. You're already there, but you don't know it. You're already who you are, but you don't know it. Right? You can't know who you are, you can only be who you are. That's the problem. You can't see who you are, you can only be who you are. Because who you are is where you're looking from, so you can never see it. Right? So this is the predicament that we're in as human beings. You know, we got conditioned to participate in this game we're all playing called the human life. It's a very temporary experience, right? We think it takes a long time. 100 years is a blink. And you should get yourself clear about that. You don't have time to mess around. If you're serious about being happy, all right, then you should stop doing what doesn't work and start paying attention so you can begin to experience a state of being, and in that state of being, it's possible to be happy. You don't do happiness, you be happy, right? You don't chase happiness, you experience it as something that's already the case. You're already home. If you're already home and you're already who you are, and who you already are is happy, satisfied, peaceful, and content, right? But you're not paying attention to that, it's not likely to be very fulfilling. And the only way you're going to be able to pay attention to that is to calm down. Because the condition that you and I are in, our nervous system is so out of whack, right? So out of balance that the sympathetic aspect of our nervous system, which is the aspect of our nervous system that's always prepared for flight or flight, right? That's prepared to deal with threats. You know, we're in a very low-grade fight or flight condition all the time. That's why you don't have a lot of energy, because your muscles are always tense and it's burning that energy up all the time, even though you're not going anywhere. Between muscle tension and thinking, you waste most of your energy. Let that sink in. Energy is necessary to experience being alive. Energy is necessary to experience the consciousness that is your true nature. But it's not very available if you keep burning all the energy up, so you're so tired all you can do is sleep to keep the body going. All right, this is the condition that most human beings are experiencing. And meditation opens up the possibility of using meditation as a portal out of what's not real into what is real. Out of believing that you're something that you're not, into experiencing your true nature. You're always experiencing your true nature. One of the mistakes that a lot of people make, even in spiritual circles, right, is they come to the conclusion that I must not be there now because it doesn't feel like I am. I don't think I am. I must not be there now, so therefore I have to do something to get somewhere else. Yeah? Yeah, but what I'm telling you is you are there now no matter what you think, no matter how you feel, because those thoughts and feelings are coming from a program in which you take yourself to be something that you're not. And as long as you stay tuned into that channel, you will experience the programming on that channel, which is survival programming. Right? As long as you stay tuned into the channel of I am a body and I am a personality, you will live in the world of that. You will live in the thought world, because the thought world is the world that produces that illusion. That's the trick, the magic trick that's being produced all the time. You know, it's like David said last night. He said that the ego, or the personality, right? Where is it? Where is it? Right? Let's really narrow it down, right? Where is this personality that I take myself to be? Well, I'll tell you exactly where it is, right? So you can see it when you're practicing meditation. Where it is, it's between the awareness and the awareness of the body breathing. It's between there. It's between the awareness and the awareness of the body breathing. So when you're practicing meditation, I tell you, move your attention away from the thought activity, focus your attention on the belly moving, and watch the body breathe. The awareness, aware of the body breathing. So where is the ego? The ego comes in between. Yeah, awareness of the body breathing, and then the thought process says, I am breathing. That's the ego. You get that? Yeah. And that in-between statement, I am breathing, right, is the way the ego generates its existence all the time. It's not the body walking, it's I am walking. It's not thought happening in the mind, it's I am thinking, right? You see how that works? The thought process just keeps interjecting I, just keeps interjecting the personality. It doesn't exist, so it has to keep interjecting it, right? It has to keep interjecting it. How do I know that I'm real? I must be real. I'm the one that's doing what I'm doing. I'm the doer. That's how I know I'm real. I'm the one that's doing what I'm doing. You know, if I ask you to raise your hand like that, right, and then I ask you how you did that, you can't tell me. So how do you know you did it? We never slow down enough to look at things like this to realize we don't know what we're talking about. You know, we don't know who we are. We don't know how things work. We don't know what reality is, and then we expect to be happy. Right? If you went somewhere and people were playing a game and you didn't understand the game and you didn't know what the rules were, what chance would you have of winning? Not much, right? Not much of a chance. You'd be confused a lot. You'd be upset a lot. You'd be frustrated a lot, and then you'd give up, right? That's the way human lives go, isn't it? You know, people give up. And they get so frustrated, and they feel it's so hopeless that there's no possibility to be happy because I've been chasing it in every way that I know, and it hasn't made a difference, especially for people that have a lot of money and fame and power, all the things that are supposed to be the aspects of happiness, you know, the ingredients of happiness, and then they're not happy. Now what? What do you do now, right? And so you have famous, wealthy people kill themselves. Kill themselves. What a tragedy. Yeah. The tragedy is that most human beings, right, are experiencing a life that doesn't exist. That's the tragedy. Most human beings are experiencing a condition in which they think their life is happening as a thought activity. Isn't it true? Most human beings are living in a condition in which they're experiencing a thought process that they call their life. Isn't it true? Yeah, when you wake up in the morning, right, the first thing that happens is the voice in your head starts talking, and that you call that your life, don't you? Yeah. And there's no possibility for happiness, peace, or well-being in that existence. None. Zero. So you will keep trying, you know, because there's 8 billion people that believe that lie, right? So you'll keep trying to make more money, you'll keep trying to figure it all out, you'll keep trying to stop making the same mistakes, and none of it will ever work. It's impossible for it to work because the you that's trying to be happy doesn't exist. And the you that is happy is there all the time, but you're not paying any attention to that. And when you practice meditation, you begin to pay attention to reality. By moving your attention away from the thought activity, it's generating an illusion. It's generating an illusion, and you start to pay attention to what is not an illusion. Oh, the awareness of the body breathing is not an illusion. The awareness is actually real. It's actually awake. And not only is it real and awake, it is actually you. That is the realization. That is the realization that allows you to begin to experience a state of well-being. Allows you to experience a state of natural happiness all the time, regardless of the circumstances. Regardless of the circumstances, because along with that state of well-being comes clarity. And that clarity allows you to see that everything is perfect. Now, you know, when I say that, you know, your mind will say, oh, no, it's not, right? Because you're living in the world where that's not perfect, and you get to live in that world, right? And I'm telling you, there's a possibility for you to live in a world of perfection in which nothing has to change, everything is perfect just the way it is, right? That's called thy will be done, right? The world of perfection is the world that God is creating, not you. Right? Whatever you consider God to be, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You can't understand it because if you understand it, you go away from it and start thinking about it. Yeah, there's nothing to understand. There's nothing to understand. If you relax, you see, that's the thing. Until you relax, you will fall into the mistake of thinking that you can think this truth. You'll fall into that. You know, you'll try and think this truth. You'll try and improve your personality. You'll try and be happy, right? And if you do that, right, that's just more material for you to arrive at the conclusion that you failed. And that failure is a success. When you fail as something that can't possibly succeed, you've succeeded. Do you get it? When you fail as something that can't possibly succeed, you've succeeded. Now you can begin the process that's a real process, not an illusion. That's the thing the mind can't get. Yeah, the mind's a time-based operation, right? So it just can't get. It just cannot get. It's impossible for the thought process to get that you're already happy. You know what I mean? In fact, most people would like to argue with that. Don't tell me I'm happy. You don't know me. Don't tell me I'm happy. If I told you what was going on in my life, you'd take that back. But I'm not saying you're happy because of the circumstances of your life. I'm saying you're happy because that's your natural state, right? A baby that does not yet have a personality, right? A baby before the age of about almost 2 years old, right? You didn't exist, right? You think you did, you know. Human beings are under the illusion that when the body was born, you were born. No, when the body was born, you weren't there. The awareness was there, but it didn't have a name, it didn't have a personality, and you didn't take yourself to be anything at that point. You just were. You're just being the awareness, right? And then you get a name and a personality, and you believe that's really you, and you try and be that and live that, and your life starts to become a life of suffering, right? So the baby was experiencing a state of freedom, a state of well-being that was not circumstantial. You know, you ever see, if you imagine a baby is sitting in a blanket in the living room, it's had its food and its diaper's been changed, right? And the TV's on, and on the TV is all the terrible news that we all watch, and the baby's completely unaffected. Completely unaffected. Why? Because the baby is not a personality. The baby is just being aware. It has no position. It doesn't think things should be different. A baby's just experiencing the way things are, moment to moment. Doesn't things think, and then it gets a name and a personality, right? And it starts to think about it. And then it starts to think about it. There starts to have a voice in its head that starts commenting and making a narrative on everything, right? And questioning everything. And then once you start identifying with that voice in your head, you start realizing, oh, something's wrong. Something's wrong here. Something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with life. We got to fix it. We got to fix it, right?
And the illusion of control when they learn to say no.
That's right. You know, the terrible twos. So what happens is we end up in a condition, in a situation where the way we think that we're going to succeed in pursuing happiness is to kill anybody that gets in my way. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Don't you see? That's what war is, right? You know, war is an attempt on people. War is an attempt that is being made by people who believe they are a personality in a physical body trying to be happy, aren't they? So they want to get the people out of the way that are in the way of my being happy, then I'll be okay, right? Or another version of the same reality is I've got to find the right person to be happy with, right? The love of my life. What did David say last night? You remember that? He said, you'll know you met your match. You'll know you met the person that is the right person for you, right? If that's somebody that you have the thought that you made a mistake. See, we don't slow down and look at this, right? But if you met somebody and you fell in love with them, right, and they were always exactly the way you wanted them to be all the time, you'd hate them. You'd hate them. There would be no adventure. There would be no difference between you and them, right? And then on the other side of it is if there is a difference between you and them, we make them wrong for being different, don't we? If you were like me, we'd get along fine. Even though if you were like me, I'd hate you. By the way, I hate myself. See how crazy it gets? That's how lawyers make a living. What you're doing is you're practicing getting out of the way. You're practicing getting the I am breathing out of the way. If you can get that out of the way and just be the awareness of what's happening, there wouldn't be any problems, right? But when you're the awareness of what's happening, and then between the awareness of what's happening, there's a thought process. That process then says what's happening is either right or wrong. It shouldn't be happening. I got to change it. I got to adjust it, right? So the idea of watching the body breathe, there's nothing magical about that per se. But when you're doing that, guess who's not there? Yeah, the one who's causing the problems isn't there. It's really simple. That's why I tell people that deviate from the practice, don't do that. You don't have to do that. Just stay with the practice, because all you have to do is get to the point where you can understand and practice what you're understanding. And what you understand is that that which says I am breathing is not real. It doesn't exist. And that which says I am the one that's breathing is saying I am the one that's thinking, I am the one that is driving my car, I am the one that is making money, I am the one that's living my life. It's all an illusion. That's a dream. That's a dream. That's why they call this process waking up. And if you wake up, you begin to see the dream as a dream. You begin to see thinking as thinking. Right? You begin to understand that you've been making a big mistake by believing the voice in your head is you. Because what it tells you to do doesn't work. And if you think it's you, right, then you're in worse trouble. Right? Because not only does it not work, but then you don't work, and then you have a judgment and evaluation about yourself. That's called a negative self-image, right? Then you need help. You need help, somebody to help you build up your self-image again. In the natural state, there's nothing to build. There's nothing to lose, nothing to change, nothing to build. You can just relax. That's why the practice is to relax, because there is nothing to do. But you can't get that through thought. You can only get that through practice. And if you get it practiced sufficiently, you'll see it for yourself. Once you see it for yourself, it gets easy, because then you don't have to make it happen anymore. It's your natural way of existing to practice being awake. You don't hear this a lot, and it's not practiced in psychotherapy. One of the reasons, or the reason this is not taught or practiced in psychotherapy is because you have to be awake to practice this. And most psychologists aren't. Most psychiatrists aren't. Most human beings aren't. Right? And the awakeness that I'm speaking of is not an achievement. It's not something special. That's what keeps people from experiencing it. They think it's something special or it's an achievement. No, it's something that's natural. It's something that's already happening. If I'm awake, that doesn't mean I'm better than you. It means I'm the same as you. Catch up to me. Start experiencing what I'm experiencing. What I'm experiencing is that I'm behind the personality. You see, when you're the awareness, you can see the personality, you can see the thoughts, you can see the behaviors, you can see the whole thing from behind the whole thing. And you can relax there and be aware of what's happening without being attached to it, or without thinking that it's the source of your well-being. Your well-being is already the case. Your well-being is already the case. It will never change, no matter what happens.